Listen to this podcast now
on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Leadership Thread with Dr. Peggy Polonis.
I'm Dr. Peggy Polonis. Join me on each episode where I unravel the story that shaped leaders, tracing the thread that led them where they are today. Because leadership isn't born in adulthood. And thank you once again for joining us on the Leadership Thread, education, ethics, and sustainability.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now through your favorite podcast platform.
The Rev and the Rabbi on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Good morning. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Reverend, the
new
Rabbi.
Here we are.
Yeah. The new mayor of the city of New York said, no more rugged individualism. We want collectivism. So send me your check. Elias, producer, send me your check. We're going to put all the checks together and just divide them accordingly. No individualism anymore.
You know, I heard it said once, and I believe it, that if you took all the money in the world, divided it equally amongst all the people in the world, it would still end up back in the hands of those who know what to do with it. Yeah. Is that true, Rabbi?
Well, if you don't know what to do, look at all of the lotto, all those winners. What happens when they don't know what to do with it? They end up as poor as they were when they started. So
that's exactly right.
Obviously, having the ability to manage funds is critical. But I'm looking. I watched the inauguration yesterday, and you saw the excitement, the young people. Mm-hmm. And as soon as the inauguration ended, Mayor Mandani goes in and rescinds executive orders of Mayor Adams. And amongst the executive orders that were rescinded, the IRA definition for anti-Semitism that's been accepted by countries and major international bodies, the BDS policy rescinded. You can now boycott the state of Israel. It just seems to me that do you really want to write off 2/3 of the New York Jewish community when you become mayor? Is that an effective policy with the largest Jewish population? Do you want to take a stance that is contrary to the views of the majority of Jews in New York? I don't think so.
Why do you think he did that?
Because that's who he is. Because we talk about core values. That's who he is. He has made it no secret. This is not a shock. Because he has spoken about he doesn't believe in that Jews should have a Jewish state of Israel. He believes in this divestment. He said he would arrest the Prime Minister of Israel should he arrive in New York, which is an outrageous thing to say. And he hasn't in any way camouflaged those feelings. So he's elected, he gets in, he rescinds executive orders, and here we are. And now we're going to have, face-to-face or however it's going to work. There will be confrontations here because when I say confrontation, I'm talking about we really have to make it known that we won't accept this. We're not going to just sit back and say, well, you're the mayor and whatever you say goes. No, it's not true. And that's what...
So do you think it's going to incite conflict during his administration?
Well, I like to think...
And who's that going to come from? From what side? The Jewish community against what he's doing? Or will those who have a problem with the state of Israel feel emboldened, and the protests will come from them?
Well, I think you're going to see both sides, but I think you're going to see, IRA definition didn't pass on its own. There were many allies who stood with us. The governor of the state of New York signed legislation, confirming the IRA definition. So it's going to be, groups combating with each other. I'm not talking about physical combat. I'm talking about political combat. And let's see how that goes. But I do think if you want to govern effectively, you have to find a way to include, a major segment of the population of the city of New York. But he doesn't feel that way. Israel, we have a saying, it's in your kishkas, it's in your innards, it's in your inside, you feel it. He doesn't feel that way about Israel. He's hostile. I mean, I listened to the speech and, talking, there was this politics of grievance where if you're successful, somehow you're responsible for, right?
Now you're talking about socialism.
Yeah. So in other words, if you made it, you did it on the backs of those who didn't make it. And, I've lived in the city for quite a while here, and I talk to people wherever I go, and I talk to cab drivers and vendors, coffee vendors, and I got to tell you, there are many people who've worked their way up, whose kids have gone to college, who've bought a home, and they worked hard. Nobody handed it to them, and they don't hold the wealthy responsible for their struggle because they say that's the price you pay. When you don't have the education, when you don't have that door open, you have to try to push the other door open, and the way to do it is to work hard.
So you find the Democratic part of democratic socialists as suspect. Is that what you're saying? That it's not going to be democratic?
Well, look at what
be more socialist?
Well, look at what Mayor Mamdani said. I was elected as a democratic socialist. I ran that way, and I will govern as a democratic socialist. So he's clear. He's not ambiguous about who he is and what he feels. And I say to the other side, those of us who have a contrary position, we cannot be ambiguous. We have to be very clear and confrontational in this. Otherwise, if you don't stand up, if you don't shout, then you hand it to the other side. And it's just too important an issue to just close your eyes and close your mouths. So you're gonna hear a lot of noise.
Well, we wouldn't be New Yorkers if we close our eyes and close our mouth. That's the thing about New Yorkers. But there's a difference between campaigning and running the government and governing. And it's not as easy as it may seem. Even with executive orders, and, mayors do that, presidents do that, as they come into office, come into power. But applying it, that's a different story. Especially with a tax-based economy such as New York State and New York City. It's not going to be that easy.
Especially when you're looking at a tremendous budget hole. And you have to go, where's the money going to come from? It's good that we have all the young people here wanting to live in New York, but your tax base isn't there. It's with people who have worked hard over the years to be here and have provided jobs for other people. That's your tax. That's the significant part of your tax base. So you're not going to plug that hole by just making these kinds of promises of things that are free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, look, one of the things I have to agree with, and that is housing. I'm involved in affordable housing, and that requires a partnership between government, the private sector, and in our case, the faith-based sector of society, because you can't build affordable housing without government help and subsidies. You can't do it. It's just you can't afford it. No developer could afford to build it without some type of government help. Look, I'm happy about that. The task forces of lift and speed. Yeah, because it's a bottleneck. The pipeline for getting development projects done. It took us 8 years, Rabbi, and that's pretty fast. Yeah, people don't realize.
We're gonna take a break here, but I think the key word you used there was partnership. And if you want to solve or address these issues constructively, then you have to cooperate. You have to sit down with those who have different points of view and say, how do we fix this problem? How do we fix it together? But if you're going to come in and just rescind executive orders, if that's the solution, that's not fixing anything. That's just creating the problem and making it even more serious for everyone. So,
all right.
We'll come back.
We'll be back for more of Rabbi's passion with this whole situation right here on the Rev and the Rabbi. Stay tuned.
The Rev and the Rabbi on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and busts. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The Rev and the Rabbi.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard. So, Rabbi, please vent. Tell us how you really feel about this, Rabbi.
Look, I've been part, of the the Jewish circle for many years. I participated in a host of gatherings and meetings and communications. And the key to success is to find a way to cooperate without conceding your core values. But you have to look to cooperate. What the mayor has done in this first day is refuse to cooperate. Just come in and say, here, I'm just rescinding all these orders that Mayor Adams made. They're out the window. Forget it. Not with the statement, we have to find a way to see how we can make it better, but just say, it's not going to happen anymore under my watch. That's not effective.
We're going to see what happens, because you and I know for sure. We know. We've been in the mix for a long time. It takes partnerships. It takes collaboration. It takes cooperation. It takes negotiation in order to get things done. Otherwise, things will get stale and stalled. That's the reality. But look, he had several thousand people out there in the celebrative canyon of New York City. And how do we explain that, Rabbi? Well, I have an idea, but I want to know what you think.
Yeah, look, a lot of young people were very excited. He had 70,000 volunteers in his campaign. They were very enthused by talking about issues that resonated with them for years. Affordability and housing. They were mentioned, but at the end, they weren't the essence. And here they feel they have a mayor who's going to address issues that really have been very troubling for many people. How do you live in the city when the rents are so high, when the cost of living is so high? How do you make it work? And he spoke to that, and that's to his credit. He was an exciting candidate. But on the other hand, there are also issues that are important to us that need to be addressed in an effective way, not just by cancellation. Cancel culture, applies to people. It applies to issues as well, I see. We can't just cancel our way into the future. I would hope that we're going to find a way to deal with this much more effectively than simply, saying we're not going to do that, we're not going to do this, and too bad. That's not the way to govern.
Well, I don't want to sound like the old guy, but you and I have been around long enough to see things come and go. And one of the things that marks American or characterizes American society today is an obsession with novelty. The brain's dopamine, that reward system that comes. He's new. He's 34 years old, youngest mayor in the history of New York City mayors. And he's coming out with a very progressive, platform, and making promises to change things. So I think the young people are stirred because they identify with it. It's new. It's exciting. But again, Rabbi, we have to watch how it plays out.
Yeah, look, it is no secret that hatred is on the rise. Anti-Semitism is at an all-time high. I had hoped that the mayor would address that in his inauguration speech. Instead of simply identifying with the Jewish community by saying when he was growing up he used to have bagels and lox on a Sunday. That to me is that's not a strong identification.
That's not enough,
right? Yeah. But maybe for some maybe. But I
not even a bialy with a schmear. Okay, it's not going to cut it. Nothing cut it for you.
Yeah, but when you walk down the street and you're wearing a yarmulke or a Jewish star and you're on a college campus and you're being attacked, that's got to be That status quo is totally unacceptable. It's morally unacceptable. So what are you going to do? You see, you can't say, well, I'm going to provide security, while at the same time you're inflaming the situation. Don't inflame. You know what we often say at FDNY, the best way to, fight a fire is to prevent a fire. Deal with preventative measures. Don't inflame situations, and you won't have the crises that you have to face later.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how he responds, because we know something's going to happen. We know, unfortunately, there will be some crisis. There will be some situation. And will there be a response in action or just words or excuses? Look, we've got to give the benefit of the doubt. We've got to say, if he fails, we all fail. We're all going to be affected by it. So we have to do everything that we can to make sure that we hold him accountable. Exactly. In this leadership position.
Exactly. You mentioned
that's our responsibility.
Partnership, accountability, all of those things are part of the recipe for success. And we, as faith leaders, have to do. And I was telling some Jewish leaders recently, we can't fight anti-Semitism alone. We need non-Jews to fight with us. We need people to stand, as you have over the years, and to say, we will not tolerate the hatred of the Jew, because that hatred is a hatred of us as well. So, the collaboration has to be strong. And there are things that have happened on the first day that really are very, very unacceptable. And we're not going to just step back and say, well, it's not that important. It is important. It's a core value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, housing was important. What else? What else did he talk about? I mean, he talked about basically being a mayor for all New Yorkers, but putting specific focus on the working class and their needs and their issues. What else did you hear, Rabbi?
Yeah, those are the things. I mean, things about, the pain that many feel and how we have to come together as a city to address the pain. It can't just be about me. It's got to be about us. And developing programs that benefits all people. But don't do it in such a way that it's the people who have succeeded who are responsible for, the defeats of others or the lack of success of others. We have to find programs that work for others. But you have to have initiative. You got to take initiatives on your own. It can't just be, when you took a test in school, you had to study. You couldn't have someone else study and take the test for you. So we all have that responsibility to do as much as we can for ourselves and for others. And by the way, that's religious tradition. You don't wait till a person falls to the ground. You have to strengthen his hand so he doesn't fall to the ground.
Right. What we call the strong bearing the infirmities of the weak. He talked about freezing rents for nearly 1 million rent-stabilized apartments. What's that going to look like? How is that going to affect the landlords?
Exactly,
how is it going to affect things economically? Because, people who don't pay the rent, the landlord still has to pay the mortgage.
Exactly.
Will there be a freeze on the mortgage?
and
again,
it's this us against them. It's the landlord who's responsible and the tenant who, pays the price. Find a solution that works for both. Be fair. Don't set up this us versus them mentality. It's a recipe for disaster. So I'm hoping that, we're going to have some way to have a real impact here. But it won't happen if we just, escape to our separate enclaves and remain silent. That's not the solution. That's not.
He was pressing the right buttons. You think about universal child care.
Right.
For children, age 6 weeks or to 5 years old. That's a big cost. I know couples, right? Who the mother decide to stay home because the salary she would have made working, all right, is going to go right to childcare.
Yeah.
So it's not going to have any effect on the income, so it's cheaper for her to stay home and take care of the child. So I think the young people that he resonated with, he really push the right buttons in terms of their experiences here in New York City.
I remember Ed Koch, when he was mayor, talked about, health care and the need to provide health care. And he said, but the other side of that is also, what can we afford to provide? There has to be a reality check looking at the dollars and say, can we realistically do this? Or is this something we can't do? And rather than blaming others and saying, well, it's because, the rent, what they're doing, and they're making money and they're taking our money, all of that mentality, that doesn't solve the problem. How do we fix a problem that is important for many, many people? Let's find a way, but it's not going to be with the us against them kind of mentality.
But you're going to be in the mix, right, Rabbi?
Absolutely. You got to be in the room. You got to be in the room to effectuate change. You got to be in the room if you want to make a difference. You can't just be outside banging on the door, say, let me in.
Or screaming and hollering and playing side chair quarterback, right? No, you can't do that.
We want less noise, more light. And the only way we're going to find the light is when we're in the room together. All right.
Stay tuned for more of the Rev and the Rabbi right here on Red Apple Radio Network.
The Rev and the Rabbi on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You're
The Rev and the Rabbi.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Great. In Times Square, I watched you on TV. There you were with the hat and the horn. It was just a wonderful sight. I commend you.
I hope you didn't give me any money because it wasn't me.
Those days are long gone. How anyone can sit or stand in Times Square and you can't get out, you're a prisoner.
I did it. My wife and I were talking about it. We did it when we were dating, and then after we got married. But that was it. Twice was enough.
Wow. All right, and that was in the 1820s, and they still had it. Wow.
Okay, see, already. First show of the year, and he's digging.
All right, obviously there's much to discuss on this day, both globally and locally. Why don't we talk with Jonathan Wachtel, because he is the Global Affairs Analyst. He's the co-founder, president of ARCO Incorporated. We'll talk about that later. And Jonathan worked as Director of Communications and a Senior Policy Advisor to the United States mission to the UN, where he focused on crises in the former Soviet Union, including Russia, Ukraine, Armenia, Azerbaijan wars. He worked on civic diplomacy between the Soviet Union and the United States in the late 80s and founded the Moscow Bureau of Worldwide Television News Association, known as the Associated Press TV today. Jonathan Wachtel, always a great moment to have you with us.
Good to join you guys.
So, Jonathan, let me ask you something. We hear this phrase, America First, and I remember Lindbergh, of course, popularized it years ago. What does that mean in terms of involvement in any foreign affairs? What would that have meant during the Holocaust? What does it mean with Iran? If you say America First, does that mean we don't engage anywhere?
The United States was founded, of course, on the principles that we all cherish, and we got to see Mamdani swear on the Constitution and what we're supposed to be standing for, and that is, liberty for everyone, a chance for all of us to reach for our dreams and aspirations, not just in the United States, but a common thread that should go through all of humanity. And one of the amazing things that the United States has done is it's given hope to people around the world for decades as a beacon of democracy, as a place that people try to clamor to get into and look up at and see it as something that they aspire to have, because they understand that a liberal democracy, a true democracy, allows an opportunity for the human individual to flourish.
So my folks who are Holocaust survivors, what would have meant to them America First? Does that mean that we don't in any way try to save those people who are suffering?
Yeah, that is the daunting thing, and we watch right now. I mean, of course, the Holocaust and the numbers and the length of time that went on, and the ability to have done something to save so many souls, and failing at that. That's a stain on humanity, and it's certainly a stain on the ability of a country that espouses the ideals that I was just talking about, to turn a blind eye to suffering, to turn a blind eye to the aspirations of people who are stuck in a place in which they're going to be slaughtered wholesale. And we've had, some terrible things going on in the world, that had there been more resolve to contain extremism that was causing all this havoc, we would have saved a lot of people in 2025, and sadly, we didn't.
Jonathan, isn't it sort of our identity and history being involved in what's happening on the global stage? I think about, I love history. I think about Thomas Jefferson when he made a decision to try and be neutral when the British and the French were at war. And of course, we were, still doing business and trading with both. And from that early stage on in American history, we've always been somehow looked to or drawn into what's happening on the global stage. Do you find that's a pattern? Is that something about America?
It speaks to both what we're supposed to be doing as a nation if we believe in what this country was founded on, the basis of that, and the role that it played in the course of history as something that other countries tried to emulate. But it also speaks to the power of the United States and our ability to punch, even in those days above our weight, one could argue, but we had weight to us, gravity. And as long as we have that ability to sway the affairs of other countries, not in a meddling way necessarily, but in a way of trying to coax the movements, what's happening within those countries into a positive direction, why not? Why not play a constructive role?
Let's go to the Russia-Ukrainian situation. Do you see President Putin making any concessions to achieve an agreement here, or is it all going to fall on Ukraine?
We have witnessed over the last months of what in February will be a 4-year war, Vladimir Putin's digging down and realizing that he's going to literally get away with murder. And nothing will change until he feels that it's going to be economically and in such a way that it's going to threaten his rule. He will continue as long as he can go. And this is all playing out his great regret that the Soviet Union collapsed and his land grab now, an influence grab, to try to enlarge the Russian Federation as much as he possibly can. So chewing off 20% of the second largest European country in Europe is something that he certainly wants to see happen. He would like to take more, but if he can get that, then it is a win.
Why is it that it seems that the European nations watching this unfold are not as concerned as maybe they should be? Or maybe I'm wrong. Am I missing it? But it doesn't seem like the European nations are really that concerned about what's happening.
I think it's a combination of things. I agree with you. Given the stakes, you would think that it's abundantly clear that the European nations need to unite and push back with full force at Russia. And to a degree, they've tried. But we saw just recently them capitulate as a group in which they had the ability to exert maximum financial pressure on Russia by withholding assets and taking those assets that are primarily held in Belgium and using that to pay for Ukraine's financial needs over the course of the next couple of years. And in the end, they offered Ukraine a zero-interest loan of the money instead. And there was a pivotal moment in which to message to Russia, hey, stop, we're serious. You're going to lose your assets. We're going to continue to tighten the screws on you. Cut it out, Putin. Don't go any farther. And instead, they did this. I'm not going to say it was feckless, but it was certainly not as powerful a message as they could have given, and they failed. And, of course, Vladimir Putin looks at that, saw the disunity within the European Union, and understood that there are cracks, and he can manipulate it further.
So what are the leverages that we have now?
The leverages we have is to continue to pressure. Now, the administration has taken on a position in which there is pressure on Zelensky to concede the territories and to sue for peace, and we're entering a phase in which the Ukraine, and we're seeing it, this talk of being 90% there potentially in reaching an agreement. There's pressure on Ukraine to do something, but to ask the Ukrainian people to cede 20% of their land permanently is something that any leader, Zelensky included, is not going to survive as a political figure and will go down in history as having failed his people. So he's really in a pinch. There has to be concessions, of course. I don't see any out for him when it comes to Crimea, which is so strategically important to the Russian Federation from a military and historic viewpoint. But you know, these are going to be tough days ahead for the Ukrainian people and for Zelensky, because there really does have to be some very painful concessions happening. But it all comes down to those security guarantees, because there's not going to be giving away of land or allowing the Russians to hold on to it in a frozen conflict without the protection of some sort of intervention from the international community to ensure that Putin doesn't wake up and say, okay, I'm ready to go for some more land.
We're going to take a break here. So we'll be back with more of this discussion.
Yeah, so stay tuned for more of The Rev and the Rabbi right here on Red Apple Radio Network.
The Rev and the Rabbi on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Rev and the Rabbi.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
And we're speaking with Jonathan Wachtel, Global Affairs Analyst, co-founder, president of ARCO. And he was the Director of Communications and Senior Policy Advisor at the United States Mission to the UN. And when it comes to global affairs, he is the expert. Rev?
Yeah, and that's why we have him here talking to us today on this first Sunday of the new year. Jonathan, does Ukraine have any resources, anything that would entice other nations to come to its aid and cut some kind of a deal? Is there concern going up against Russia? I'm just trying to make sense of the limited involvement by those surrounding nations. And I realize Ukraine is a large piece of land.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, a primary concern is the ideological issue of seizing land of another country and getting away with it. And what that, of course, messages to the other nations that border Russia and have had a history that has been quite complicated with Russia doing exactly what it's doing now. That's one thing. You ask a really good pointed question about, but what about that land itself? What's being lost here? Why does it matter? Well, the land itself is extremely strategic. Let's start with the Donbass region on the eastern side of Ukraine. And by the way, you're right. The territory is massive. It's the size of multiple it's the size of multiple European nations, to be sure, but multiple smaller states of the United States that have been chewed off by Russia. It's no joke. I mean, we talk about, the conflict between the Israelis and the Lebanese and Gaza and things like that. That's just a little speck. This is real land. Now, on that land, there's the industrial belt of eastern Ukraine in the Donbass region, historically a powerhouse of industry, also a powerhouse of fossil fuels, a history of coal dating way back into history of being an energy source. Then you have rare earth minerals in part of the areas that have been taken. And you'll recall that the United States, the administration, was negotiating with the Ukrainians on what to do about their rare earth minerals. Rare earth minerals are certainly one of the top hot topics of the United States' competition with China holding 70% of the rare earth minerals, and with that having really a stranglehold on the United States when it comes to supply chains for what we're doing with high-tech manufacturing. So the Ukraine has all this. Then we're not even talking about the Crimea, a region that's very large, a peninsula that punches out into the Black Sea and opens up trade, military ability that leads into the Black Sea through the Bosphorus Strait into the Mediterranean Sea. hugely significant to all the European nations in terms of the ability of navigating the waters and controlling those territorial waters. So all of those things are massively important.
Jonathan, you mentioned security guarantees, and I know they look good and sound good, but how real are they? I mean, think of what happened in Afghanistan, the Taiwan situation, which people think eventually will fall into the hands of China. Are they really, is there something very strong in those guarantees that would give people a sense of security that America will be there to protect them, or some kind of collaboration of nations will be there, or is it just all talk?
That's why NATO was created, so that nations would enjoy, all for one type of status, that if they're attacked under Chapter 5, the rest of the organization will come to their defense. Ukraine doesn't enjoy the benefits that the Baltic states, the former Soviet republics of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania have with being in NATO, and they feel very secure. And if you ask one of those European nations, what's more important to you, having EU membership or being a member of NATO, all of them will yell at the top of their voice, being a member of NATO. Those security guarantees are really gold to them. Ukraine doesn't get this. You're asking the right question. So what happens here? Well, you've heard talk of having a NATO-like arrangement in terms of guarantees. And you're right. It's only as good as the paper that it is drawn up on. But it's got to be something. It's got to be something more robust than that agreement called the Budapest Agreement, which was signed back in the early 90s when Ukraine, with the collapse of the Soviet Union, inherited the world's third largest nuclear arsenal, and then decided with an agreement worked out between Russia, France, the United States, and Great Britain to hand those weapons over to Russia to handle. And guarantees were given verbally in that document without any teeth that Russia would recognize and not meddle with, not do what they did. And they did it. Russia did it. So, it obviously sends shivers up the spine of the Ukrainians if whatever is worked out doesn't have some sort of teeth to it, some obligation. The verbiage can't be loose like Russia will look upon it favorably and do what it can to agree to this. No, it has to be more ironclad language that says that if Russia moves its war machine back at Ukrainian territory, then this and this will happen. That it'll be beyond a demand. That there's the expectation that there will be military intervention or some other intervention to dissuade Moscow from doing what it's doing.
Jonathan, for those our listeners who may not be familiar with the history, why isn't Ukraine a part of NATO?
Fear that the Ukraine is such an important strategic country to Russian history and to European history, that it is just too hot an item, that the likelihood of some sort of conflict happening is that much more amplified. So it is a territory that historically has been traded between essentially Vilna, the Polish area of control of Ukraine, and then the Russian Empire holding on to it. It's always been this hotly contested area, and that's why it's not surprising that we find ourselves looking at this terrible situation in that very country, because it's historically held this status of being an area that has had conflict between Russia and the rest of Europe.
So look what we're saying, Jonathan. Everybody says NATO gold standard. We want that protection. On the other hand, here's an area of conflict between Russia and Ukraine. No. Now we can't allow NATO to embrace Ukraine. Right? I mean, it is a contradiction there.
It is a contradiction, but it speaks to our concerns of Russia. Russia is certainly not the Russia that if we were, dressed in our garb of the, the 1800s and talking about Russia, we would look at Russia as a country that had a backwardness to it, but it had this depth to it, and it had a population that could really inflict damage and to our nation as we're sipping our teas with our fake wigs. Today's Russia is scary in that it's a nuclear power. It's got a massive army, and it's got a military industry, weapons industry that is really quite impressive, and it can cause a lot of damage, and it needs to be dealt with. Sure, its economy is the size of Texas, but the Russian people historically are willing to sacrifice everything to achieve the gains, and its leaders from every czar going back in history were willing to exact maximum pressure on other nations by subjecting their people to tolerate things that normal Americans would never tolerate in terms of economic suffering and fear of life and being sent to the front line to fight and that type of thing for a cause that we would think would be kind of preposterous. But from their perspective, it's something that they know that they can, Putin knows that he can lean on his population to do this. And he has been getting away with sacrificing so many young men at the front lines in a cause that let's face it, Russia's twice the size of the United States. Are they really in an existential threat from Europe and that they're going to lose their country? No. It's more of a hegemonic thing that's going on, and it's part of this empire belief that has gone on for centuries now.
We have a minute left. Rev? Quick point?
Go ahead, Rabbi.
No.
I want a question because, we spent all this time in Europe, but I would like, Jonathan, maybe we need to take a little extra time on this segment. But, Jonathan, just what are the implications of what's happening between the United States and Venezuela now in our Western Hemisphere?
It's a great question. All of these conflicts that we're seeing are interconnected because all of them have to do with America's role in the world as that shining beacon on the hill. And Venezuela has, for the last 25 years, been ruled by Hugo Chavez and now Maduro. And these guys are terrible guys. They have oppressed their own people. They've allowed narco trade, and they've strategically worked out alliances that are completely contrarian to what the United States stands for, and have meddled in our hemisphere, causing all sorts of problems and ensuring that there's always been this irritant going on. So the outcome of Venezuela matters to the Venezuelan people, of course, and we really want them to finally have an opportunity to turn the clock back to 25 years ago and charter a course of prosperity for themselves, not a situation in which all the military leaders and other cronies get wonderful contracts with the government and everybody else in society is cut out of an opportunity to have a full life. And that's Venezuela today.
Jonathan Wachtel. Thank you. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we're getting the sign from our producer, Elias Raff. When someone presents well, Jonathan, you say encore. We got to have you back because there are so many areas in the world that require your kind of analysis. So thank you so much. Happy, healthy New Year, and look forward to speaking to you soon.
You guys as well. Enjoy. Talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great conversation.
We're at the end of a show?
Yeah.
Already?
Kevin Drosch came in and he gave his own signal to me, and I won't even tell you what it was.
He gave the signal. But thank you for listening to the Rev and the Rabbi right here on Red Apple Radio Network, hoping that you are always inspired and informed and enjoying our conversation. Till next time, God bless.
Thanks for listening to The Rev and the Rabbi. You can hear The Rev and the Rabbi Sunday mornings at 7. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.